20 Days with Julian and Little Bunny by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Read by Frank Blissett. August 11th, Monday. The little man spoke to me sometime in the depth of night, and said very quietly that he did not have very pleasant dreams. Doubtless the currants which he ate at supper had wrought a malevolent influence upon him, and, in fact, I could hear them rumbling in his belly. He himself heard the rumor of them, but did not recognize where the sound came from, and inquired of me what it was. After a while he fell asleep again, and slept somewhat later than usual, insomuch that I now, at not far from 7, bathed, and finally had to arouse him. Mrs. Peters returned before his bath was over. He munched a slice of bread as we went together for the milk. It was a clear, calm, and pretty cool morning. After breakfast, I gathered some string beans and good store of summer squashes. Then I frizzled the old gentleman's wig, and went upstairs to my own toilet. Before 10, we set out on a walk along the mountainside by the Hudson Road. There could not be more delightful weather, warm but not too warm, except in the full brunt of the sunbeams, and a gentle stirring breeze which had the memory of an iceberg in it, as all the breezes of this summer have. It was a very pleasant walk. The old boy, who well merits to be dubbed a Knight of the Thistle, performed feats of valor against these old enemies. Neither did I shrink from the combat. He found many flowers, too, and he was enthusiastic about their beauty, often bestowing his encomiums on very homely ones. But he has a real feeling for everything that grows. In the wood opposite Mr. Flint's we saw some men cutting down trees, at which he expressed great anger, and said he would rather have no fire and drink cold milk. We walked a good way along the road until we came within sight of a house which stands at what seems to be the highest point and deepest in the forest. There we turned back and rested ourselves on some logs, a little withdrawn from the roadside. The little man said that one of these logs was Giant Despair, and that the old giant was dead, and he dug a shallow hole, which he said should be the giant's grave. I objected that it was not half large enough, but he informed me that Giant Despair grew very small the moment he was dead. While we sat here, a man passed in a four-wheeled chaise, and soon afterwards came a handsome barouche and pair, with two ladies and a whiskered gentleman in it, making a very gay spectacle along the forest road. And in the other direction came a wagon, driven by a boy, and containing a woman and a little girl, who, I suppose, were his mother and sister. The woman alighted, and coming towards me, asked if I had seen any stray chickens. It seems, in passing over the road this morning, they had lost some chickens out of the wagon, and now were seeking them. But in my opinion they might have called wild birds out of the trees with about as much hope of success. However, when we came away, they were still seeking their chickens, and the boy was calling, "Chick, chick, chick," with something lamentable in his tone. And for aught I know, he is calling them yet. But the chickens have strayed into the wild wood, and will perhaps intermarry with partridges, or establish a race of wild hens. Julian and I came homeward more slowly than we went, for the sun had grown pretty fervent, and our walk had been quite a long one. We found high bush blackberries along the way, but I allowed him to eat only a very few, and therefore gained most of the little handfuls which he gathered for my own eating. It was about 12 when we reached the house. He has had peculiar longings for his mother and Una today, and pronounced his love for them with great emphasis. I do not think he has given Rosebud any place in his affections yet, though he answered, "Yes," in a matter-of-course way when I inquired whether he did not love her too. It is now about 2:30, and he wishes to take a walk to the lake. We went accordingly, and then he took a bare pole and set to fishing again. Poor, patient little angler that he is. I lay a long while on the green margin of the lake, partly in the shade and partly in the sun. The breeze seemed to come from the southward, and was pretty brisk, so that it sang among the trees and heaved the wavelets against the shore. I almost fell asleep, and whenever I unclosed my eyes, there was the unweariable fisher boy. By and by he proposed to go to Mama's Rock, as he has named a certain large rock beneath some walnut trees, where the children went with Phoebe to gather nuts last autumn. He informed me that, when he was grown up, he should build a house for his mother at this rock, and that I might live there too. "When I am grown up," he said, "everybody must mind me." We visited Mama's Rock, and then he picked up the nuts of last year, and perseveringly cracked them, believing that in every one he should find good meats, nor yet seeming to feel much disappointed when he found them all decayed. We spent some time here, and then came home through the pasture, and the little man kept jumping over the high weeds and the tufts of everlasting flowers, while I compared his overflowing sprightliness with my own reluctant footsteps, and was content that he should be young instead of I. We got home about 5. I have just put the old fellow to bed at 7:15. He expressed some fear that he should have the bad dream of last night over again, but I told him that, as he had eaten no currants tonight, he would not probably be troubled. He says the dream was about dogs. To bed at about 9. That was 20 Days with Julian and Little Bunny, August 11th, 1851, by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Read by Frank Blissett.